Did you recently pick up Mahjong Soul on Steam and are being bullied by cat girls with one Hantanyo hands? Well, look no further. Here's 5 quick tips to get you started. Number 1. Focus on a few easy Yaku, or just one. A Yaku is a specific win condition your hand needs to follow, kind of like poker hands, like a straight or flush. Even if you have all your sets of 3 and your pair, you can't win unless your hand has a Yaku too, which makes learning them very important. The problem is that there are 37 officially sanctioned Yaku, which is a lot, but the vast majority of these are extremely rare, to the point where you might not see them all even after thousands of games. Meanwhile, even among the best players in the world, the Riichi Yaku, which just requires you to build your hand yourself and not call tiles from other players, makes up over 40% of wins in Riichi Mahjong. That's why I recommend every beginner to focus on making Riichi hands first. You can even turn off calls on the sidebar to not get prompted to Pon or Chi and accidentally disqualify yourself from calling Riichi. The other most common Yaku, the Yakuhai, is extremely easy to get as it just requires you to have a triplet of one of the dragon tiles, the round wind, or your seat wind, which you could just pwn if you have a pair of them. And the win rate of these Yaku combined add up to about another 40%. Since it's not very common for Yakuhai to stack with Riichi, the combined winning percentage of these Yaku is going to be within 70 to 80% of all hands. That's more than enough to play the game at a semi-competitive level with different fun strategies. For other common Yaku, there's all simples, which is really quick and versatile, there's half flush, which generally has good value, and there's pinfu, which is helpful for learning sound Mahjong play. Almost every other Yaku in the game is not even 5% of the total wins, so don't think that they're all required for you to have fun or play good Mahjong. But of course, if you want to open your boundaries a bit, feel free to learn as many Yaku as you want, and as long as you stick with the Yaku that you're comfortable with, you should have no problem winning. With a little bit of luck, of course. Number 2 is to cut isolated tiles from the outside. This tip is all about proper discard order. Generally, the tiles that are near each other are good since they can form sequences and triplets if you bring in a third tile. But if you have tiles that are 3 or more away from the next suited tile, or single honor tiles that can't be in sequences at all, these should always be on the chopping block first. But not all isolated tiles are created equal. Honor tiles are notoriously difficult to use because they can only be pairs and triplets, not sequences. And the numbers closer to the middle of our 1 to 9 number line can be used in 3 different sequences. But the terminal tiles, which are the 1s and 9s, can only be used in one exact sequence. So when judging which isolated tile to cut, we almost always want to cut the honor tiles and the numbers closer to the edge or outside first. This way, the majority of our isolated tiles will be in the middle or inside of the number line, and it'll be much easier to form sequences later on. A decent beginner strategy is to just cut or discard any unpaired honor tiles first, before cutting the terminal tiles. If you can recognize the Yakuhai tiles though, I'd recommend cutting the non-Yakuhai wind tiles first. For example, in this case, we cut the north first, because the east and south winds could give us a Yaku if we pair one. After we cut the guest winds, then we cut the terminal tiles, and then finally the Yakuhai tiles, so we have a maximum chance of drawing them. When we run out of isolated honor tiles, we cut the next outside tiles, which are the 2s and 8s. And then finally, the numbers 3 to 7 are more or less equal in value. But you still might prefer keeping the 4s, 5s, and 6s, just because they could better utilize the red 5 Dora, which we'll get into later. And remember, we're only talking about isolated tiles here. If you have a pair of any of these tiles, or 2 tiles that could become the sequence, make sure you cut all of your isolated tiles first, before you think of cutting any of these. With that said, here's the full list of the discard order. But TLDR, terminal and honor tiles, bad. Unless they have a friend. Number 3 is to make more Ryanmen weights. Ryanmen literally means 2 sides, and it's a kind of shape in Mahjong where 2 numbered tiles that are adjacent to each other can form a sequence if they catch a third numbered tile from either side, making it twice as efficient as most other shapes in Mahjong. It's so intuitive you might already be using them, but it's just as important to plan to make these Ryanmen weights as much as possible. This means staying true to our second tip of cutting from the outside, because any of the tiles 3 to 7 can accept an adjacent tile from either side and become a Ryanmen. It also means trying to upgrade our other basic 2-tile shapes into Ryanmen whenever possible. Kanchan, or closed weights, where 2 tiles are waiting to sandwich a third tile, can always upgrade it into a Ryanmen by taking an adjacent tile on at least one of its sides. And if both of the tiles in our shape are between 3 and 7, then that means there are 2 possible Ryanmen upgrades. Keeping these inside Kanchan are a great choice if you need more Ryanmen. The next best choice is having more pairs made of inside tiles. That way you can also accept the Ryanmen upgrade on either side. Consider keeping all 3 of the tiles for a chance at either a sequence or triplet all in one. And the last kind of weight is the penchant, or the edge weight. It sits on the edge of the number line and acts like a one-sided Ryanmen. They suck. You can't even upgrade it to a Ryanmen directly. You have to upgrade it to a kanchan first, and then a Ryanmen after. If you can find all of your sequences elsewhere, throw this guy first, and make more Ryanmen. Number 4. Check and keep the Dora. Every hand of Mahjong Soul, the top left corner of the screen shows the Dora indicator tile, which means that the tile after in that suit is the Dora tile, and it's worth more points if you win with it. And the game will also remind you of that with the sparkly effect. Having Dora in your hand is the easiest way to make your hand valuable, especially as a beginner. Every copy of the Dora in your hand is worth 1 han, which can double your hand value from 1,000 points to 2,000 to 4,000 up to 8,000 points at 4 han, with potentially more points if you get even more han. So at the beginning of every hand, it's extremely important to check the Dora, because while it's not difficult to generally keep the Dora, I mean just look at it, you should also be keeping tiles that can connect with the Dora. For example, if the Dora is the 8-so, that automatically makes the 6, 7, and 9-so more valuable because they can connect with the Dora in the sequence. So any isolated tile that's within 2 away of the Dora should be discarded last compared to other isolated tiles. In addition to the Dora, there are also the red 5s, also known as Aka. There's only 1 for each suit, and they're all compatible with the inside tiles you should already be keeping. But if you don't see the red 5s anywhere, you might want to keep your 4s and 6s just in case you draw one. If you build your hand in a way that can accept more Dora, your score potential will grow exponentially, meaning you'll need to win fewer hands in order to lock in a first place. Dora are a gift from the gods. Don't discard them lightly. And now at number 5, our final tip is not to sweat your losses. Mahjong has an incredibly high skill ceiling, but it is also equally dependent on chance. The best player can make all the best moves and still be unable to win if the flow sides with someone else. Some games will feel really easy, with all the tiles flowing naturally and hands begging to be won. But then other games will feel impossible and test the limits of your endurance and mental fortitude. That's just the game. It's not your fault. Mahjong teaches us that everyone can fall short, and no one is immune to the laws of probability. Bad things can and will happen in your life. And that's okay, because we can still keep moving forward and learn something along the way. And as long as we continue to bring our best every time, eventually, we will be rewarded. Beautiful sights that surpass imagination are just over the horizon. And you don't need to be of a certain skill to experience them. You just need to be willing to accept it once the chance arrives. Keep looking to improve your game, but above all, keep having fun, and you might not even notice how far you've already walked. Thanks for watching. I don't usually make scripted content like this, so if you did enjoy it, leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and maybe I'll have another one. Otherwise, right now I'm streaming Mahjong once a week here on YouTube, so I hope you'll drop in if you have the chance. Later!